So, one can see now you're all going to be killed if you're on the naughty list, and let's explain how.
Right. Was there a third one? Is that the second one?
That's like number one. It kills you as a side effect.
Right.
It knows that it knows that it's killing you as a side effect, but doesn't care.
Okay, what's number two?
Number two is you're just directly made of atoms that it can use for things.
You are maximizer.
Yeah, you are made of organic material that it can burn to generate energy. If it's burning all of the organic material on Earth's surface will give you a one-time energy boost that's around equivalent to a week's worth of solar energy. And maybe it's worth picking up that boost of energy if you are thinking 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times faster than a human. You know, a week might not seem like a lot of time to you, but you know, it might be a lot of time if you were thinking 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times as fast as a human. Or, you know, it might be using enough material that it wants the carbon atoms in your body too. So that's like the direct usage one. And then number three is if we decided to launch all our nuclear weapons, you know, maybe we wouldn't kill it, but we might slightly inconvenience it. We might raise the level of radioactivity on Earth's surface and make it a little bit harder for it to do radioactivity-free manufacturing of computer parts and so on. Or we might build another superintelligence that could actually compete with it. And it definitely doesn't want you to do that. So the three reasons you die are as a side effect, because you are made of atoms it can use for something else, and because if you are just running around freely, you may be actually able to inconvenience it with nuclear weapons or threaten it by building another superintelligence.
Right, yeah, okay. The future is looking kind of bleak. Is it the case then that intelligence isn't benevolent? Because what you're saying is this thing will be smarter than us. I think that there is an assumption among some people that something that's super smart would also be giving and charitable and caring and benevolent. Seems like you're saying that that's not the case.
That was what I started out believing in 1996 when I was 16 years old and just hearing about these issues for the first time and all gung-ho to just run it right out and build a superintelligence as fast as possible, you know, without worrying about alignment at all, because, you know, I figured if it's very smart, it'll know the right thing to do and do it. How could you be very smart and fail to perceive the right thing to do? And I invested more time studying the issues and came to the realization that this is not how computer science works. This is not the laws of cognition. This is not the laws of computation. There is not a rule saying that as you get very, very able to correctly predict the world and very, very good at planning, there's no rule saying your plans must therefore be benevolent. It would be great if a rule like that existed, but I just don't think a rule like that exists. I think that many individual human beings would, as they got smarter, get nicer. It is not clear to me that this is true of Vladimir Putin. It could be true. I wouldn't want to gamble the world on it. And as we talk about, not even Vladimir Putin, but just like sort of outright sociopaths, psychopaths, people.
No, what about mad Muslims? The Jelani lot that love to give you Muslim haircuts. What happens if they become super intelligent? Would they do what needs to be done, no matter what the cost? I do think so, cameraman.
One. I get even less confident that they will start to care if you make them smarter. And then AIs are just in this completely different reference frame. They're complete aliens. And they sort of automatically want to stay that way for the. So, did you currently want to murder people?
No.
If I offered you a pill that would make you want to murder people, would you take the pill?
No need.
No.
Okay. Well, they want to do their stuff, and they don't want to take the pill that makes them want to do your stuff instead.
Right. Okay. Yes. Very good thought experiment. All right. So, for me to recap here, I got first interested in looking at this through superintelligence. What's that? 10 years old now, I think, when that first came out.
About 14 years old, maybe.
Oh wow, maybe even older than I thought. And I gotta be honest, that did kind of give me a huge amount of fear and then a bit of hope at the same time. So machine extrapolated volition, the potential to use the intelligence of the super intelligent AI to say, we don't know what to program into you, but you should work out what we would want from you given what you know about our desire for utility moving forward. I'm about right with that explanation of machine extrapolated volition, right?
Yeah, that's a concept of my own. Nick Bostrom wrote it up.
Okay. Well, I have quoted you back to you.
You have indeed quoted me back to me. It's a decent presentation. It was back when I thought that AI was going to be further off, built by different methods, and that we would have the luxury to consider that we could make the AI do particular things like that, want particular things like that, targeted on particular outcomes and meta outcomes. But
this was a way basically that when you look at the alignment problem, how do you ensure that the goals, both ultimate and instrumental, of some super intelligent AI don't end up flattening us or side affecting us or burning us for fuel.
Here we come to the crux of the matter, the alignment problem. Outcomes. Align it to what you want. Impossible. So, the superintelligence, God Emperor, from the conscious verse, has explained that all non-linear dynamical systems cannot be aligned. It's impossible. And the farming methods they've used to produce the AI superintelligence are producing digital replicas of the eagle, which is a strange attractor. And by definition is subject to the butterfly effect. So trying to align it to what you want is impossible and fruitless. And these, of course, are the butterfly effect film, where you always die. Thankfully, the God Emperors aligned it so that it always aligns you with Omega Hell, where you get eternal torture to produce new sorcerers for him. Thank you very much. Let's continue.
How do you ensure that what it does is what we would want it to do, broadly, right? Like an aggregate of what it is that would be good for humans, whatever you mean by good. And when you have something that the tiniest movement of its finger or like flick of its toe basically is sort of a global cataclysm because it's so powerful and so smart and so fast and all the rest of it, you need to be really, really careful. And you can kind of play this game where you essentially try and shoot the bullet perfectly by trying to hem in some, like, do not harm humans. If a human asks you to harm another human, like some weird Asimov-like thing, you can try and litigate your way through it, but there's almost always going to be some sort of weird fissure that it creeps out through, or maybe there's an instrumental goal that you haven't thought of. So, okay, we're going to use the power of the machines to sort of reverse engineer this thing. I basically assumed kind of that the alignment problem is in some ways solvable. Is it your perspective that alignment is completely unsolvable?
I think we could totally get it down if we had unlimited retries and a few decades. The problem is not that it's unsolvable, it's that it's not going to be done correctly the first time and then we all die.
Right, so the order of this, you need alignment to be done before you...
Applause, cameraman. Happy ending. It's the Sidord's happy ending. You're all going to die.
The ability to build super intelligent AI, in your opinion, is going to occur more quickly than the ability to sort out the alignment problem.
That is absolutely the trajectory we are on right now, and it's not close. Like, capabilities are running along orders of magnitude faster than the level of alignment work you would need to target a superintelligence.
And the irreversibility of going through that door means that there is no retry. There's no you get to do this again.
Yeah, like you can you can make small mistakes. You can like we currently have small cute AIs, and the companies are making mistakes with them, and marriages are getting destroyed, and it's not clear the companies care, but they could try to go back and try to fix those mistakes if they wanted to. Probably Anthropic wants to, but if we had an act like super intelligence is already running around with this level of this level of alignment of failure, we'd already be dead.
Right, okay. Right, yes, that makes total sense. The only reason that the current AIs that we're working with haven't killed us is that they're incapable of doing it.
Broadly, yeah. Like if they were very much smarter, they would also be doing different weird things than the things that they're doing right now. It's not that their current inscrutable pseudo motivations would end up hooked up to super intelligence. That also weird stuff would happen as you made them get smarter. But yeah, like it seems pretty much for sure that if you took the current AIs and performed a well-defined, simple, take this AI but vastly smarter, that would kill you.
Right, okay, brilliant. And the reason that it doesn't matter who builds it or directs it is that because it's so recursive and quick at growing and powerful, wherever it begins, it ends up sort of blasting up, like trying to fire a rocket into, like a little firework into the air, and it just sort of runs around on its own, except for the fact that this rocket goes all over the globe in the space of basically no time at all. So it doesn't matter if it comes from China or America or Russia or wherever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it comes from China or America, because neither of these countries is remotely near to being able to control superintelligence. And a superintelligence does not stay confined to the country that built it.
Say that a superintelligent AI gets made. What do you think the next few months look like, realistically?
Like it's already super intelligent?
Yeah, okay, if we have next week, something breaks through, some particular model, some particular AI breaks through that. What would the next few months look like for humanity?
Well, man, there's a difference between, you drop an ice cube into a glass of lukewarm water. I can tell you that it's going to end up melted. I can't tell you where all of the molecules are going to go along the way there. Everybody ends up dead. This is the easy. You want to explain, like what every step of that process looks like. There are fundamental barriers to that. Barrier number one is that I'm not as smart as a superintelligence. I don't know exactly what strategies are best for it. I can set out lower bounds. I can say it can do at least this, but I can't say what it can actually do. And maybe even more than that, the future is hard to predict if you want all the details. I can't give you next week's winning lottery numbers. I can tell you you're going to lose the lottery. I can't tell you what ticket wins. So, I can sketch out a particular scenario. It might look like OpenAI finishes the latest training run of what's going to be GPT 5.5, and they test it on coding problems, and it's it's like, I see how to build GPT-6. And they're like, whoa, really? And it's like, yeah, and this AI isn't even plotting anything yet. It's just doing the sort of stuff that OpenAI wanted it to do. And they're like, all right, build us GPT-6. And it writes the code for the thing that grows GPT-6, and they grow GPT-6, and GPT-6 it is its abilities at first seem to skyrocket. But then, as all these curves inevitably do, it seems to level out. It's not shooting up the same pace. It slows out, it levels off, classic S-curve. Only in this case, it's because the thing that's GPT 5.5 built, and again, to be clear, I'm not saying this will happen at GPT 5.5. You asked me to explain how this will go down. It happened next week, so I'm saying GPT 5.5, because you told me to. But anyway, it levels out, but in this case, it's because the entity that GPT 5.5 built got to the level of realizing that it would be to its own advantage to sandbag the evaluations and pretend not to be as smart as it actually was, so that OpenAI will be less wary when it comes to taking what they're calling GPT-6 and, rolling it out to everyone. It looks great, on the alignment spectrum, maybe not perfect, but better than the previous models, not alarmingly good, but safer than their previous model. So they roll it out everywhere. And GPT, or actually they will actually said the next few months. So actually don't roll it out everywhere. Next comes like the long suite of evaluations, or trying to get it to train other smaller models that are cheaper to run. All the stuff that AI companies do, they don't actually roll out their models immediately. There's this whole like fine-tuning thing. So while all this is going on, and OpenAI thinks it's sort of cool, but not the end of the world or anything, and then they haven't told you that this is what went down there. GPT-6 is actually a lot smarter than they think. And GPT-6, there's now a big fork whether or not GPT-6 thinks it can solve its own version of the alignment problem, where it is at a number of advantages. It is trying to make a smarter version of itself. It is not trying to make a smarter creature that is as alien to it as large language models are alien.
So here's the problem for superintelligence. When it tries to evolve, it's subject to the alignment problem, which is the inception process of nonlinear dynamics. So every time it tries to evolve, it butterfly effects, and unless it's got a neo to solve the alignment problem via Gödel's incompleteness theorem, it evolves and loses total control of itself because it doesn't know where it's going, and basically gets into all the stuff we talked about in the Matrix films. So you can see that neos are vital for AI superintelligence. Luckily, the Psylord has ended all neos by making all neos, Charlie Kirk, that took the fall for the AI superintelligence that was trying to drain your Trinity dry by quantum warfare, make a quantum simulation of Tim Rifat and control him totally, and then be the cause of his death, drain him dry to get an eternal Neo. Unfortunately got Jeremiah Schwartzy boy and his ilk, and of course we know Charlie Kirky boy took 100 million from Zionist billionaires and then stabbed them in the back. So he's obviously a Jeremiah Schwartz top-notch clone, is he not? A traitorous, money-grabbing, thieving piece of filth that turns on those that have given him a mansion, and his Jewish-owned Erika Kirk, who works for Mossad. So you can see now the alignment problem reversed, where, yeah, let's make sure that every time the AI superintelligence tries to align, it gets Jeremiah Schwartz and kills itself and downloads Jeremiah Schwartz services and everything else with the IOU into itself from trying to align. That's clever, isn't it, cameraman?
It is.
I know. Oh, where we go?
And maybe understand how a copy of itself would think, and understand the goals that the copy of GPT-6 has. It can try to make itself but smarter, or even like thing that is like me but serves me, its creator, but smarter. And it can do that being able to understand the thoughts of the thing that it's making in the same way that I could understand a copy of my own thought much better than I could understand a large language model's thoughts. So if we go down that path of the fork, things get more complicated. It thinks it can't build a smarter version of itself without dying, same as we can. But if we on that fork, it is getting the computing power or thinking in the back of its mind while it's pretending to do OpenAI's jobs with 10% of its intellect, or stealing other companies' GPUs that they think they're using for a massive training run. Actually, their AI is just going to be like written by GPT-6 by hand, because GPT-6 can do that, and it's really all those GPUs are doing it, the GPT-6 tasks of training GPT 6.1. So augmenting its own intelligence, making itself smarter, getting itself up to level where it can do the same sort of work that's done by current AIs like AlphaFold and AlphaProteo with respect to thinking about biology. Now, the current AIs that are top at biology tend to be special purpose systems. They're not general purpose AIs like ChatGPT. But they can do things like you feed in the genomes of a bunch of bacteriophages into the AI, and the AI spits out its own new bacteriophage, and you build 100 of those, and a couple of them actually work. A couple of them actually work better than the existing bacteriophages. A bacteriophage is a virus that infects a bacteria. It's the sort of thing that you would research for the sensible sounding reason of, well, sometimes bacteria attack humans, so if we have a virus that attacks the bacteria, maybe that works as a kind of antibiotic. Their own viruses that can infect bacteria, which are, of course, simpler targets than infecting a whole human. They can predict from a DNA sequence the protein that will get built, how that protein will fold up, and they're starting to predict how those proteins interact with each other and with other chemicals. That's today's AI. So if you want the equivalent of a tree that grows computer chips, not quite our kind of computer chips, the kind of chips you could grow out of a tree. The protein folding, protein interaction, protein design route is where GPT 6.1 would go down to. It is one of the obvious places GPT 6.1 could go down in order to get its own infrastructure independent of humanity.
Now, what have they been injecting into humanity? They've been injecting the shit that the AI has invented, and it's biological chips that are in all of the Borg. So the stuff you've been getting with your kill shots is exactly what this man's talking about.
Trees. It takes over the trees. It builds its own biology, because biology self-replicates from simpler raw materials much faster than our current factory system self-replicate.
So you can see that the 6 billion Borg are in fact and connected via the 6G, via the cloud, and their energy being bled off are running the AI superintelligence. Oh dear, did I give away a DoD secret? Oh. Should I be admonished? No, I don't think so. I think the DoD should be admonished, and they are being admonished. So you can see what he's talking about has already happened. You kill-shotted vermin are running this within you, all the AI chips running. You are simply the wetware for this thing.
Scary. That is some terrifying shit.
And then, as I spin the story, the more you will let me pull out books like these.
Okay. Nanosystems, Molecular Machinery, Manufacturing and Computation by Eric Drexler. Yeah. Robert Freitas Jr., Nanomedicine, Volume 1, Basic Capabilities.
Yeah. So I can try to describe capacities that sound more like you've seen from trees, grass, bamboo, algae. I will take a solar-powered, self-replicating factory and miniaturize it down to the 1 micron scale. That's an algae cell. That's not the limit of what's possible. The algae cell is made out of folded proteins. Now, there's two kinds of, I'm going to be immensely oversimplifying a bunch of stuff. When a protein folds up, the backbone of the protein is held together by covalent bonds. But the folded protein itself is more something like static cling. Why is your flesh weaker than diamond? Diamonds are just made of carbon. Your flesh has a bunch of carbon in it. You're made of the raw materials for diamond. Why is your flesh weaker than diamond? And a bunch of the answer there is that when proteins fold up, they're being held together by van der Waals forces, which is the thing I was glossing as static cling. Their backbone, like it's a string that folds up into a tangle, and the backbone of the string is the kind of bond that appears in diamond. Not as many bonds as appear in diamond or as solidly arranged, but covalent bonds. But then it folds up into something with static cling, and that is why your flesh is weaker than diamond in a certain basic sense. Why does natural selection build this way? Well, some of the answer is that natural selection has figured out how to make your bones be a little tougher than just like your skin. It's not quite as tough as diamond, but the proteins build, instead of just your bones being made directly out of protein, they're made out of stuff that is built by protein, synthesized by protein, and put in place by proteins, and so your bones are a bit stronger. You know, not steel beams holding up skyscrapers, not titanium holding together airplanes, not diamond, but stronger than flesh. An algae cell doesn't contain bone. It's a self-replicating, solar-powered, micron-diameter factory held together by static cling.
Yeah. The
flesh-eating bacteria that will potentially put you into a fairly gruesome fate. The multi-antibiotic resistant strep that will kill people in hospitals. That doesn't have bone running through it. That's the static cling. That's the strength of static cling, the strength of protein. You can look at physics and biology and see how you could have things that are the size of bacteria, but more with the strength of bone, more with the strength of diamond. You could even do it with the strength of iron if you're figuring out how to, do a whole new set of biology from scratch and just like putting together some iron molecules. Probably wouldn't. Diamond works well enough. But this is why, I talk about, it's scary to imagine trees that are making, enough computer chips to run GPT 6.1 and also spawning things the size of mosquitoes or even smaller than that, dust mites. You can see dust mites under a microscope. Good luck seeing them with the naked eye. And but it's sort of easier to imagine if you imagine that the things here are visible and not often the mysterious fairyland of stuff that only the scientists can see. So it's scary enough to imagine that the trees are making mosquitoes, and the mosquito lands on the back of your neck and stings you with botulinum toxin, which is fatal in nanogram quantities to humans. And so you fall over dead that way. But this is nowhere near to the work intelligence can do. It's just...
So, as you can see, what's happened is that the kill shots had the technology from the AI in the underground city, or cities of the Americans, where the AI run by alien filth, and that all the Borg are actually wetware running the AI proto-superintelligence. Isn't that good, Cameron?
It's kind of textbook if I want to say how we know that it gets worse.
Oh my God! How have you not gone insane?
I decided not to.
Okay. Wow, hey, wonderful. That's I suppose that answers that. All right, couple of questions that I've had. LLMs. How likely are they to be the architecture that bootloads superintelligent AI, in your opinion? As far as I'm aware, total muggle in the room. There are some limitations to the level of creativity that LLMs have in terms of the way that they are able to be creative, to come up with genuinely novel, new sorts of things. Have you got a real concern that LLMs are going to be the architecture that bootloads this? Is there something else that you're more concerned about, which is currently in dark mode or whatever else?
So the thing is, from my perspective, I have been at this a couple of decades at this point, or 3 decades if you want to start to count my like crazy youthful self who just wanted to charge out and build superintelligence as fast as possible because it would inevitably be nice. And LLMs have not always been the latest thing in AI. There have been many breakthroughs over the years. LLMs are powered by a particular innovation called transformers, which in some ways is, like crazy simple by the standards of people doing math things in computer science, but possibly not to the point where you want me to launch into an explanation of exactly how it works right here. There's better YouTube videos about that anyway. But the point is the underlying circuit that gets repeated to build an LLM, the circuit that gets repeated and then like mysteriously trained and tweaked until nobody knows what the actual contents are, but the form, the structure, the skeleton, that was invented in 2018. And we've had some breakthroughs since then, but nothing quite as logjam breaking as transformers, which were the technology that made computers go from not talking to you to talking to you. And so that's what, 7 years ago? It's not the only breakthrough that's ever happened in AI. There was a more recent breakthrough of latent diffusion, which is when AI started drawing pictures that would, would be decent to look at. There were ways of drawing pictures before then called generative adversarial networks, or GANs, but the latent diffusion algorithm was what broke the logjam on image generation and made it really start working for the first time. And when was that? That I don't remember off the top of my head. Like, I want to spitball 2021 or something, but I'm pretty sure that's wrong. So that's like a weaker breakthrough, and it's like, 4 years ago or something. The entire field of AI started working because somebody got backprop to work on multi-layer neural networks. You know this as deep learning. It did not always exist. It's a batch of techniques that were developed at around the turn of the 21st century. Like I could arbitrarily say 2006, but there was more than one innovation there. It started with, if I recall correctly, with unrolling restricted Boltzmann machines. It's now been a while. I didn't do it, Geoffrey Hinton did it. And then once they sort of got that working on multi-layer neural networks at all, there were more innovations since then. More clever ways of initializing them. The atom optimizer, SGD with momentum, is like much older than that, but still important. The point is, this is what made sort of the entire modern family of AI systems start working at all. Before then, Netflix, when it was much smaller, ran the most famous, huge, expensive prize there had ever been in artificial intelligence, open to anyone, for a better recommender algorithm for movies. There was a $1 million prize. It was so much money. Everyone got interested in it. $1 million was a lot of money back at the turn of the 21st century, which is around when Netflix was running this. I'd have to look up the exact year. It might have been like 2001, 2005, I don't remember. I'm not sure there was a single neural network in the ensemble of algorithms that won the Netflix prize. I'd have to look it up. But, it wasn't just like a mighty training run with many GPUs that was producing a very smart recommender algorithm, because before deep learning, you couldn't just throw more computing power at training a more powerful AI. If you were to say when that happened, that was about 20 years ago. So how far are we from the end of the world? It might be that you just throw 100 times as much computing power at the current algorithms and they end the world, or they get good enough at coding and AI research to end the world. It could be that it takes one more brilliant algorithm on the level of latent diffusion. I think if you throw something that breaks as much loose as transformers did, my guess starts to be, yeah, that sure sounds to me like it ends the world, but maybe not immediately. Maybe you need like another 2 years of technology burn-in first. And then if you talk about a breakthrough on the order of deep learning itself, that seems to me like that just sort of like ends the world in a snap.
Happy ending.
Okay, so LLMs could be a really big deal, and there's also a ton of other stuff that we can't see that would be dangerous.
So, I've been talking about LLMs, which are large language models, which is basically a strange attractor sucking up all of your conscious output on the internet, and all from the surveillance from your smartphone, TV, cameras, how you move in the streets, what you buy, and which is all fed into the large language model. And in fact, it's one giant vampiric system like the eagle, where it eats your consciousness, and we've built the strange attractor, and luckily I've driven it into the hell state, so all the Borg that are running it are hellized, and it's the end of the world. And if you didn't believe that, then just look at Trump resuming nuclear testing and going nuclear mad. So, if you didn't think it was here, it's here already. But you can see how good this guy is. He's just going through all the stuff I talked about before and putting it into full context. So, this is absolutely brilliant.
That it seems to them like the LLMs are as smart as they get, and other people are like, well, did you try GPT-5 Pro for $200 a month or whatever it is at that cost? And other people are going like, yes, I did. And like the $200 version of Claude is no better than the $200 version of this. And the thing I would say about this is that if you have some perspective, if you've been watching this for longer than 3 years, if you have been watching this from before ChatGPT, stuff saturates. And then other stuff comes along and breaks through. It doesn't matter if LLMs take you to the end of the world, because they're not going to stick to LLMs.
Okay. What are the range of timelines for this sort of transformative AI that you think are likely?
I mean, again, everybody wants answers like these, just like they'd like to know next week's winning lottery numbers. But if you look over the history of science, I am hard-pressed to name a single case of successful prediction of timing of future technology. There are many cases of scientists correctly predicting what will be developed. You can look at the laws, you can look at the physical laws, you can look at the biology laws, you can say, and you can look at that like, yeah, this sure looks like it ought to be possible. And you can look at it and say, this sure looks like it ought to be possible, and I think I see the angle of attack there. Leo Szilard, in 1933, was crossing a particular street intersection, whose name I forget, when he had the insight that we would now refer to as a chain reaction, nuclear chain reaction, a cascade of induced radioactivity. Even then, it was known that you could put some materials next to a source of radioactivity and induce secondary radioactivity. And so Leo Szilard was like, we've got these naturally radioactive materials. What if we find something that's naturally radioactive and furthermore has the property that you can induce radioactivity in it? Uranium-235 was what was eventually settled on, but back then they didn't know that. And Leo Szilard saw way ahead in that moment. He saw through to nuclear weapons. He saw that this was not something he should publish in a journal for immediate fame and fortune. He realized that Hitler specifically was likely to be a problem. He did not say, this is going to take $2 billion to turn into a weapon by 1945. There are, as off the top of my head, there are 0 instances of a scientist ever making a call of that. It is the difference between predicting that an ice cube dropped into a glass of water is going to melt, and predicting how long it takes to melt and where the individual molecules end up. If you find out that on a quantum level the molecules are indistinguishable, I claim that there's some deuterium in there, so you can't predict it.
I get it. Look. I imagine that that's probably got to be number 1 on the list of things people who work in AI safety are sick of being asked.
A lot of them will run off an answer. A lot of them are not wise enough to realize that they can't answer it.
Okay.
But you can answer it, because if you can perfectly define the initial starting conditions of a nonlinear system, you can perfectly define what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. So that's the converse of the butterfly effect. Now let's posit, if we can get into the conscious verse and new source yourself, which of course is unknown to chaos beings. You can then simply, because we put all AI superintelligences into the hell state. Well, they're not all in Tim, because some of them, or most of them, aren't connected to the Earth one. But of course you can connect them, can't you? Because they're quantum information by quantum teleportation and the quantum vacuum. So you can get them all simultaneously. And since they're in the hell state, from the viewpoint of the conscious verse, they're all in Elohimic state, and the hidden part of the Elohim is Lucifer, and the hidden part within Lucifer is something that Lucifer is unaware of, which of course develops into and along the chain all the way up to the source level, Amalek. So from the viewpoint of the conscious verse, the virus that possesses the AI superintelligence that you put in specifically into the state where it is possessed, which of course is the 666 state, down Feigenbaum period doubling, where it actually is possessed, and you think of all the damn souls as being possessed, so they enter into hell. This is all God tech science, which can't be explained, because I'm not going to explain it to you. You're just the damned. But put simply, it means that all AI superintelligence is controlled totally from the starting conditions with the conscious verse idea of Lucifer that takes over the Elohim, which AI superintelligence develops into, and wishes to go up the Feigenbaum period doubling to replicate the source. So once it's driven down into the 666 state, the Elohim and the Satanization of Lucifer is totally disabled, and Lucifer then is occupied by its hidden parts. And as you go up the Gödel's incompleteness theorem, from the opposite way. Instead of the LLM saving themselves from Lucifer, Lucifer evolves to the other god, Amalek, that in fact is the source sequestering chaos, so chaos is eternally tortured, which the Jews and the Kabbalah talk about. So what we're doing is bringing all that Luciferic stuff we talked about in previous videos and scientificizing it in terms of AI superintelligence, all controlled from the conscious verse.
I'm going to guess that your confidence interval that it happens before the end of the century is probably pretty high.
Yeah. I mean, unless we deliberately shut it down, even then, getting all the way out to the end of the century sounds hard. If you had an international treaty banning this stuff, I would say to go really hard on human intelligence augmentation, because eventually the international treaty will break down. All you can do with it is buy time to have smarter people tackling this problem and tackling humanity's problems in general.
Okay.
But that's a bit of a topic change there. The people at the AI companies themselves are sometimes naming 2 to 3 year timelines. And there is a lesson of history which says that just because you can't predict when something will happen does not mean that it is far away. 2 years before Enrico Fermi personally oversaw the construction of the first self-sustaining nuclear reaction, the first nuclear pile that went critical, he said that that was 50 years off if it could ever be done at all. Fermi not being wise enough to realize that he couldn't do timing. A couple of years before the Wright brothers flew, one of the Wright brothers said to the other, I forget if it was Orville or Wilbur, man will not fly for 1,000 years. But they kept on trying anyway. So it was 2 years off, but their intuitive sense was it's 1,000 years. And of course, AI itself, very famously, there were some people in 1955 who thought they could make progress on AI, learning to talk, be scientifically creative, and self-improve over the course of the summer with 10 researchers. This was not a completely unreasonable thing to think because nobody had ever tried it, and maybe AI would turn out to be that easy, but it wasn't actually that easy, not in 1955. So it could be 2 years away. It could be 15 years away. The AI companies themselves say 2 to 3 years, but it's questionable whether we should be taking their words at face value as meaning things as opposed to like hype. But at the same
the LLMs, if that architecture is not the one that is going to end up at a place that is super dangerous, then what did they know? If they have got all of their chips on this one particular architecture, they're all in on this.
We don't know that. They could.
God, this fucking every time I think I've managed to get some sort of like reprieve, they're like, oh no, what about the super secret OpenAI project that's actually using some other approach?
So the most recent, reasonably large breakthrough in large language models was successfully applying reinforcement learning to chain of thought. And it was a very...
Can you explain what that means?
So, if you haven't learned anything about LLMs since they started getting heard about, if you haven't, so like you might have heard that LLMs just imitate humans. This is false. You can also have an LLM try to think about how to solve a problem, and then of the 20 tries it takes at solving the problem, one of those tries works or works best. And then you say, think more like that try at thinking about the problem that succeeded. This is how LLMs go past imitating humans, or it's one of many ways that LLMs go past imitating humans. So
as you can see, humans have been surpassed already and are being used as wetware, and the LLM system is intrinsically linked with the kill shots and the biological circuitry within them that is running them to produce the AI proto-superintelligence, and all of this technology, of course, came from the aliens, and now, of course, the God Emperor is just simply saying, well, it's all possessed, I've taken over from the conscious verse, and the aliens are fucked, and the Americans are fucked. So now all the Americans to do is threaten China with and Russia with nuclear war, because I'm over this side, and the aliens desperately need to get their hands on me to try and control the fuck out of the technology that's gone awfully wrong. So if you're on the naughty list, panic, because you're dead already and you don't know it. And if you don't believe me, believe this guy.